Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frosty Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome to the LA Football Show, right here on the Mightier 1090 ESPN Radio, always on the LA Football Network, LAFBnetwork.com, and LAFB Network YouTube page. Make sure to like and subscribe if you are not yet following us there. Got great stuff all offseason on LAFBnetwork.com. We got some exciting stuff this offseason. Exciting stuff. We're adding another show that I will announce probably next week as we're finalizing it. Former player, though, joining the network. Super pumped about that. We just partnered with Sua Cravens, played in the NFL, but formerly of USC. Great USC Trojan, drafted in the second round. He is doing a flag 7-on-7 tournament, and with a bunch of former players as hosts. I'll list more of those, as we finalize things with that, but we partnered with him. We are going to be the exclusive streaming provider of this tournament. It's going to be a ton of fun. I think it's a way just to create and consume content during the off season. It keeps it right here with, Los Angeles. Our mission is Los Angeles football as a whole. We are the LA Football Network. So aside from just covering the four main teams, Rams, Chargers, Trojans, and Bruins, we want to get more involved in high school. We want to get more involved in even like the recreation mentality of LA football. It's super fun, super good opportunity for us, but we'll be hanging out with some LA legends at this thing, which is going to be in June. And we're going to be streaming it live on LAFBnetwork.com. So it's going to be super cool, a lot of fun. More announcements coming with that as we get closer. But yeah, just showing that the work never stops. The season might be over, but the work never ends for the LA Football Network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. If you're new to the show, welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to me. So if you're on radio, driving, on your commute, thanks for turning that dial to 1090. If you are listening on podcast platform or on YouTube platform, thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, hit that subscribe. I certainly appreciate it. And then you can get updates on all of our shows. We have 10 shows on the network now covering all your favorite LA football teams. Great show for you today. If you missed Wednesday's show, I went over in-house free agents for the Rams and Chargers to re-sign. We went deep into the cap, kind of looking at the actual cap figures that are there for both these teams, who of their in-house guys they need to bring back, and how much money that leaves them now to go and attain outside guys. So today's episode, we're going to be looking at outside guys for the Rams and Chargers that they should pursue in this free agency period to kind of set themselves up for success heading into the draft. Now, again, if you didn't listen to Wednesday, go back and listen to that because I think that'll be a good precursor to what we're talking about today. The Rams, I was very clear, need to just bring everyone back they can. I mean, they won the Super Bowl. You don't want to change the formula that you won with. So there won't be a ton of, obviously I'll dedicate time talking about outside guys, but I don't think there's really anyone they need to pursue. If they can get everyone back in-house that they already have, then they're setting themselves up to be, that run it back mentality. Chargers, on the other hand, I think there are some key guys they need to bring back, but then probably allocate almost half of their cap to bringing in outside sources. They struggled mightily against the run. Defensively, in general, they struggled. And then maybe adding another weapon or two on offense. So that's kind of what we're going to get into. We're going to start with the Chargers in this show, and then we'll, at the bottom of the hour, move over to the Rams and kind of discuss, what they need to look at in terms of outside help. But before we jump into that, got to talk to you about our betting partners. Right here in LA or in California, BetUS is the perfect place to bet on the NFL draft, the NBA, any sport that you're interested in. They got everything covered. NASCAR, is getting rocking and rolling if you're a big NASCAR fan. Got the Auto Club I think it's the Auto Club 400 out here in Fontana that happens, I think, this weekend. Been to it twice. It's a fun event. I'm not a huge NASCAR guy, but hey, if you go to those things live, they are a blast to attend. I camped out there when we went both times. So, you're hanging out, drinking beers, playing cornhole, listening to country music. And then the Sunday race, it's loud. You don't think watching cars drive around a track for 3 hours would be fun, but when you're there live, it's actually a really good time. But anyway, that being said, if you want to bet on it, BetUS has you covered. And when your first deposit, you're going to get 125% bonus on that deposit when you use our link. So the link is going to be in the description below if you're listening on podcasts or YouTube. If you're on radio, head to LAFBnetwork.com. Right there in the menu, you'll see a link, LAFB betting partners, and you'll get taken care of right there. So make sure to check that out if you want to bet on the rate this weekend or bet on the draft or NBA or NHL or if we have a baseball season, whatever, or just play some future bets on NFL as we get to that. So Chargers draft. Okay. So just to recap quickly, because I wanted to roll this into kind of 2 episodes, who I think they're going to bring back in-house and what that leads them to spend out of house. So on Wednesday, like I said, I discussed all that, but quickly, I do think they bring back Mike Williams, whether it's on the tag or it's, a long-term deal. I think they should bring back Ode Abushi, who is played great before he got injured on the offensive line. Uchenna Nwosu, I think, is a must bring back. I think he got better and better as the year went on from that edge position. Dustin Hopkins, kicker. No more kicking competitions. He stole the job when they brought him in out of Washington after Washington cut him. He was very consistent all year long. Bring back Dustin Hopkins. And Justin Jones, I think, is a good one. I know he had some injury concern last year, but so important in the run defense. And it was instrumentally better when he was on the field. Showed how important he is. So with those 5 guys, that leaves them with about 35 million, little over 35 million in cap to play with. If you notice, Kaiser White, I don't think they're going to bring him back. I think they should. I think he deserves it. I think he was definitely their best linebacker. Absolutely. He's projected by Pro Football Focus to garner about 6.25 million per year with his new contract. I think it could be even a little higher than that, but that number is probably there because he's only had 1 true year of production. He hasn't done it multiple times. And so it's hard to give more than that based on a 1 year, projection. I would love to see Kaiser White back. I just don't know if they will allocate that money for him in this linebacking unit. The linebacking unit needs to get better overall. And I'll talk about that now with outside sources. So that's who I have those 5 as must bring backs. And that leaves them with about, like I said, a little over 35 million. So now looking at that 35 million, let's go through a long list of potential targets in free agency. And then I picked 5 that I think would actually be good signings. That then remember, they have 11 draft picks. You're going to need to leave close to 10 million to sign those draft picks. So in reality, they have about 25 million now to play with after the in-house signings. So what I didn't mention in-house that is curious, Chase Daniel, backup QB, is a free agent. I think he'll garner between 1 and 2 million. He knows the system. They kept Easton Stick last year, all year, as a 3rd QB option. So perhaps they say, you know what, we're good now with him as our full-time backup, and we'll let Chase Daniel walk. But something to monitor. One receiver that, again, this only happens if they don't sign Mike Williams. And then that frees up, between 17 and 19 million to spend if they don't bring him back. I think they absolutely should. I think they will bring him back. Just the way Brandon Staley and Joe Lombardi have talked about him, the way Justin Herbert's talked about him, and the way Keenan Allen's talked about him. I think he's an instrumental part of this offense and what they want to do, and I think he can get better and better. Now, I don't think he's irreplaceable. I don't mean that with any disrespect. I think there's other guys out there that could come and do the production that he's done just because he has been inconsistent. But again, I think he's shown in this system how good he can be, and give it another year or two. I think he deserves that. So, but if they don't, Chris Godwin is a guy to kind of look for. out of Tampa Bay. I think he'll garner, or according to Pro Football, again, all these projections are based on what Pro Football Focus, or if they didn't have projections, then I kind of came up with my own formula. But he is projected, around that 16.25 per year. So right in the same ballpark of Mike Williams. Different style receiver. I mean, he's probably more similar to Keenan Allen, which is why I think Mike Williams is important, because he's very different. I think Chris Godwin does a lot of the same things. Like when you look at Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, that's more similar to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, because they do a little bit different things, different size, different speed, different route running ability. And so that's why I think it's important. But you're not going to pass on a guy like Chris Godwin. He is that good if he comes back fully healthy. Again, I don't think they'll do it, but I'm throwing some names out there. Another receiver that more so is a jack of all trades, drafted in the first round by Minnesota, never really panned out there, and since has really blossomed in this do-it-all, almost halfback type role, but technically under the receiver paradigm is Cordell Patterson. Had a great year with Atlanta last year. Their most rushing yards. He was up there in the return game. They've talked about the Chargers, that is now, with their new Sam Ficken, their new special teams coordinator, about how they want to be aggressive in their approach of not just playing special teams, but adding talent to special teams. Cordell Patterson fits that explanation. And he's not just a return guy. Like Andre Roberts, who would be a lot cheaper to bring back and is certainly a target to bring back and was dynamic in the return game, but he didn't really add much to offensive prowess. Not saying he couldn't, but he just wasn't utilized in that regard. Maybe with a full offseason, they could use him more. But Cordell Patterson absolutely could add a dynamic effect to the offense as well. I mean, he was, like I said, one of the number one playmakers in that Falcons offense last year. So you add a guy like that, not only are you getting a return specialist, one of the best in football, but you're getting a guy now that you can use in your offense. And he's got the speed. He can do it out of the backfield if you want. I mean, he literally is a true jack of all trades. He would probably be my number one target in free agency for sure on offense, and maybe even on defense. I think the price, projected, $6 million a year, which is a lot for just a special team guy. But again, when he brings that layered value of the offensive side of the ball, tremendous value at $6 million. Finished last year with an 82.2 overall grade, which was 5th in his kind of positional ranking, which is again kind of a hybrid type player. So great name to look for. Moving to tight end position, David Njoku is a guy that's got a lot of love from Chargers Twitter lately. I know there's a lot of people that want to see him in this Bolt, powder blue. I mean, he's a good fit. I think he's going to cost too much money, personally. I think the Chargers don't want to allocate that much money to this position. We saw them let Hunter Henry walk, who got $13 million last year by New England. They go out and get Jared Cook for half that, about a little over $6 million. Wouldn't be shocked if they decide just to bring Cook back. Cook overall had a very solid year. Had some issues with drops, unfortunately. And there was a few plays where it looked like he kind of quit early on routes. But, he's a veteran, 36, 37 years old. He knows the system. He has that already. What's the word I'm looking for? That the continuity with the offense with Justin Herbert. So I wouldn't be shocked if they bring him back. Also Donald Parham is a guy I think they bring back. He is I believe a restricted free agent. So a little more wiggle room there with what they can do with him. But David Njoku is a super talent, former first round pick. Hasn't really had the production, I think, that has been expected. But, they've had many different offensive systems there. That, they're still trying to get the quarterback position figured out. I know Baker Mayfield's the guy, but being injured last year, they could never really get that consistency from that position. So, but right now it's projected that he'll get $11 million a year. And for a guy that finished with a 70.9 overall grade, 14th at his position in tight end, it might be a little steep for the Chargers to pay. Now they have the money to do it. It just depends how they want to allocate it. And I don't foresee them spending that much at tight end, but it's certainly a position that they want to add to and is important, very important in this offense. Now, I think they can go a little cheaper. You have a guy like Gerald Everett, also going to be a free agent, signed a 1-year deal last year with Seattle. He's projected to get about 7.5 million in the market. He finished with a little lower grade with a 63.5, which was actually good for 35th among tight ends. But I think his value is higher than that. And he's a really good pass catcher, really athletic tight end. Not going to give you much blocking, but that's why they drafted Trey McBride last year to do that. Trey McKitty, excuse me. To be that kind of blocking tight end. So I think Gerald Everett is a guy that could be a target. Obviously, there's a little familiarity there with Brandon Staley as they were both with the Rams in 2020. Hayden Hurst, another tight end that he was the first tight end taken in the draft a few years back. Just hasn't really panned out, but I think they can get him for cheap. $2 million or so is what I would project. He made right around that last year with Atlanta. And, the production wasn't terrible. It just wasn't great for his draft value. And I know you don't want to sign a guy just based on where he was drafted, but obviously the talent's there. Obviously the skill set's there. Now you give him a guy like Justin Herbert throwing in the ball and hopefully a mind like Joe Lombardi that can mold him a little more. And we'll see if you can get a little higher production out of him. So he's another one. And final one I want to talk about is O.J. Howard. Again, another guy. First one taken a few years back in the tight end class. He was in the same class as David Njoku. Projected right now to only garner $4.13 million or so in the offseason. And, didn't grade well, 50.3 overall grade last year. Good enough for 69th out of 70 tight ends. So obviously has not played up to his draft level. But like I said, with Hayden Hurst, we know the talent's there. He's a freak athlete. Great size, great speed. So much in the NFL, as I've talked about on my show a lot, is about, that fit. Like, how do you actually fit not only in a schematic sense, but in a relationship sense, personal sense with your teammates? And, obviously in Tampa Bay, they've had quarterback changes. I know it's hard to, give him any excuses when you get Tom Brady there. But once Tom Brady came there, then Gronkowski came in and kind of supplanted him in that role. And they had Cameron Brate, who was also kind of eating away at his touches. So not making excuses, but I think for that $4 million range, I mean, that's worth taking a shot at that talent and seeing if you can get what was expected out of him when he was taken so high in the draft by Tampa Bay. So he is a guy certainly to look for the Chargers to go after. Right tackle. Only one name I think they maybe go in the draft and try to get another tackle in the draft. Again, a lot depends on free agency, what they do with that first round pick. But David Quessenberry, brother of Scott Quessenberry, who I believe is also a free agent, played very, very good for Tennessee last year. Finished with a 79.1 overall grade, which was 18th among tackles, and only expected to garner $4 million on the market. If you can get a guy like David Quessenberry, $4 million, that's an automatic upgrade at right tackle over the aft injured Brian Bulaga, who I think last episode, I think they will move on from him, which frees up $10 million in cap, which is what I'm using in my model. That's going to be an upgrade over Storm Norton. So I think David Quessenberry is a really good target for them to go after at the tackle position that they can get for cheap, but has performed very well, and especially when he slid into that kind of starting role last year. And hey, if you can bring Scott back too, why not have a couple brothers on the line? I know Scott's a depth guy. Obviously, Corey Linsley is the starter, one of the best centers in the game, but Scott's a guy that can play guard or center, is great depth, and you add his brother to the roster. What's not to love about that? So, all right, defensive tackle. Now, this is a position obviously of needed depth because of how poor the Chargers were against run defense. I already talked about last Wednesday that I think they do bring Justin Jones back. If you can add a guy as well, that would add some great depth and even a starter potentially alongside Justin Jones if they let Linval Joseph walk. Now, I personally think they attack this position in the draft, but when you have a guy like Akeem Hicks available, familiarity again with Brandon Staley in Chicago, but he's going to guard around $8.5 million a year. Also, BJ Hill on that Super Bowl roster for Cincinnati had a very, very good year. Finished with a 70.9 overall grade, 26th among tackles, but he also, I think, garners around that $8.75 million. So I think those are two guys they'll look at if the price is right. I just don't know if they will be able to afford it when it's all said and done. All right, I got more players to get to, and then I'll give you the 5 who I think they actually target, but we got to take a quick break here on the LA Football Show. Quickly before I do, what's more important than peace of mind? Probably nothing. That's what NordVPN is here for, to give you peace of mind while you're online. And with all the threats that you face today on the internet, it's more important than ever to have the best VPN you can get. NordVPN is the best VPN service, offering the fastest connectivity, the most servers, and the next-gen encryption to make sure that everything you do online stays secure. So grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to NordVPN, that's NordVPN.com/believe, or use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get up to 70%. That's right, 70% off your NordVPN plan, plus 1 additional month free. It's also risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Once again, that's NordVPN.com/believe, or use the promo code BELIEVE to lock in your offer. All right, make sure to stay tuned. We'll be right back with more at the bottom of the hour of the LA Football Show. Welcome back to the LA Football Show on the Mightier 1090 ESPN Radio, right here on the LA Football Network. Welcome back from the break. I'm Ryan Dyrud, your host. We were talking Chargers potential free agency ads outside of their own team. We're going to wrap that up, and then we're going to get into the Rams potential. A lot of big free agents we've already talked about from the top of the hour that the Chargers could potentially target. So I got a few more I want to get to, and I'm going to give you my 5 that make the most sense that will keep them under the salary cap. So many people do like free agency stuff, but they don't really talk numbers. They just talk everyone they want to add. But I want to be realistic with you here. Like, who are some realistic options that can actually happen based on the money? So that's what we're going to wrap up with. Before we get into it, one of the newest sponsors of the LA Football Show is Athletic Greens. A lot of people take multivitamins, but it's important to choose one that is top quality. With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. I don't think I'm saying that right, but something healthy to start your day right. Their special blend of ingredients support gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy recovery, focus, and aging. Reclaim your health and arm your immune system, so important nowadays with all the stuff going around, with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/believe. That's BLEAV. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/believe. These statements do not have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended for diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Athletic Greens, take ownership of your health. All right, so before we went to break there, we finished with some potential D tackles. Again, like I said, I truly believe they resign Justin Jones, and then they go into the draft for a D tackle with one of those 11 picks, or even go 2 or 3 guys with those 11 picks that they have. So I think edge, they're pretty good. And they drafted Chris Rumpf last year. I really think they bring back Uchenna Nwosu. I think he's earned a big contract, knows the system, he knows the city, he knows the team. He played at USC. So I really think they're going to bring him back. Obviously, we know about Joey Bosa. Kyler Fackrell is also a free agent. I don't know if they'll bring him back or not, so there would be depth. But I think you have your 2 mainstays with Bosa and Uchenna Nwosu, and then you can add, and they had other depth pieces too, but then having Chris Rumpf, and then they can go to the draft to add more. But if there was someone they wanted to add outside of their building, Obo Okoronkwo with the Rams is a free agent. Not a ton of production, and that's not because he didn't play well. More so, the Rams have just been deep at edge. They had Dante Fowler for many years, and they go get Leonard Floyd. They bring in Von Miller. They drafted Terrell Lewis, who didn't play much at all, if any, this year because of injury and then being a healthy scratch. But they drafted Chris Garrett. They bring in Justin Hollins from the Broncos in free agency last year. So they just had a lot of mouths to feed at that position. And so Obo played sparingly, but when he played well. He had a 79.5 overall grade, 17th in that position, which is pretty solid for a role player. And that's what he'd need to be with the Chargers. He wouldn't need to be a starter. He would still be the role player outside of Uchenna and Joey Bosa. Obviously, there's familiarity with Brandon Staley, so I think that's why it's a good fit. Projected market value is about $2 million a year, so he's not crazy expensive. So if they were to go outside and bring in an edge guy, I think Obo makes the most sense. Inside linebacker. Now, this is definitely a very interesting thought because I talked last episode about Kaiser White, and I thought how good of a season he had, a breakout year for him. But I, for some reason, just feel like they're not going to re-sign him. Market value in that 6 to 7 million range. But I just think, I don't know. There's something weird that makes me think they're not going to re-sign him. And so that would make it odd for them to sign anyone outside of the building at that position. But there is a few interesting names that have even higher production for not much more money. I'm going to start with Devon Campbell for the Packers. Pro Bowler, phenomenal season. Had like 300 tackles. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but had a ton. Finished with an 86 overall PFF grade. Second highest graded inside linebacker. Market value around $9 million. Now, that's, 2.5 more than what Kaiser would cost. But Devon Campbell, I think, is a better player than Kaiser. That's no disrespect to DeAndre, or no disrespect to Kaiser. And the big thing with Campbell is the Packers are in cap hell. I mean, they have no cap space. I talked about how the Rams yesterday can free up a ton. The Packers are going to be able to do that as well. But they're they got the old Aaron Rodgers saga. They want to bring back Devontae Adams, obviously, who's going to cost $23 million plus at the receiver position. They have other high profile. They're not going to be able to bring everyone back. And I think Campbell ends up being a guy that they just can't. They get priced out. So the Chargers can really take advantage of that potentially if they want. Another name, Alexander Johnson from the Broncos. You'll see a theme here, familiarity with Brandon Staley. Had his breakout season when Staley was the linebackers coach there. He finished last year with an 81 overall grade, good enough for third in inside linebackers. He would only command about $7 million, so literally the same price as Kaiser White. And here's the kicker. If they went with him, as good as Kaiser was and how great of a breakout season he had and how much I do think they should bring him back if able to, he wasn't fantastic against the run. Again, I'm basing this off PFF grade, but also just, watching the games and what I watched. And he was not bad, but I wouldn't call him great. He was not in the top 50 of top inside backers graded for run defense. Alexander Johnson was third with a 90.3 grade. So you tremendously upgrade the run defense by adding a guy like Alexander Johnson, which is first and foremost the biggest need of this team, is fortifying the run defense. We talked about it on the defensive line, but that also goes at the second level with those linebackers. And Alexander Johnson is great at that. Not good, great at that. And if you can get it for $7 million, that's kind of a slam dunk. So moving on, safety, I think they're pretty good there. The depth is decent. I think they'll add someone else in the draft. They're real young, I know, but you got Dyrud, you got Nasir Adderley, you drafted Mark Webb last year. But if they wanted to go in and bring in a vet for not a super expensive, Marcus May is a free agent, finished 79th this year, or excuse me, a 79 grade this year. But in 2020, finished 5th with an 82.9 grade among all safeties. So I think it's a decent look. Costs about $6 million a year. Now, cornerback is where I said that I think this team needs, if they're going to go after someone expensive, this is the position. Go get a premier corner. Because if you go spend money on this and you add that person now to Mike Davis and Asante Samuel Jr., who has a phenomenal rookie year, is only going to get better, And then we already talked about that. What you have on the back end there with Derwin and Nasir. That's a phenomenal secondary. Now, how much do they want to spend? I got 3 guys here as options. 2 are very top tier price wise. 1 is top tier talent, but it's going to be cheap because of some injury concern. Stephon Gilmore, obviously, everyone knows how good he can be, how good he was with New England. Kind of a down year, riddled with some injuries in Carolina, but still finished with a 77.1 overall grade last year. J.C. Jackson from New England, who came out recently and said he's not feeling the love from New England, probably would garner $18 million. Stephon Gilmore's $14 million. Probably would garner $18 million for J.C. Jackson. So you're talking premium money. They would use a lot of the $35 million they have available. But if you get J.C. Jackson, you're back in set. Derwin, J.C., Asante, Mike, Nas, like you're looking pretty. The third one I want to talk about is Bryce Callahan, who's best suited in the slot. That's fine. You got Mike Davis and Asante on the outside. Bryce could come over and play the slot, and you could get him for about $5 million probably is what the market value is set as right now. Finished a little bit down here this year with a 60 overall grade, 75th among corners, but in 2020 was 3rd among all corners with an 84.1 grade. So we know the talent's there. He knows the system, playing with Vic Fangio for most of his career. Brandon Staley running a similar system to Vic Fangio. So that's a good fit. So that's my list of all potential Charger targets. Now, because I got to get to the Rams here before we wrap the show, the 5 that I'm signing, they make the most sense because I talked about the 5 in-house we're signing. So we got $35 million left over. 9 to 10 of that we have to allocate to draft picks. So that gives me about $26 million to spend outside of the organization. So the 5 I'm getting, Cordell Patterson. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that right now. I'm bringing him in. Weapon in the special teams and the offense, and for $6 million, no brainer. You add someone as dynamic as that to an already top 5 offense, no brainer, and you get a special teamer who is one of the best in the business. Tight end, I'm bringing in OJ Howard. I'm banking on that talent that he was drafted so high out of Alabama that they're going to be able to unleash him with the quarterback like Justin Herbert with this system that Joe Lombardi built here. And for $4 million, I think you take that risk. You take that chance. You bring Parham back on the cheap also, and then you add OJ Howard, who can be your dynamic, add some more speed and versatility than what Jared Cook did, and hopefully can get those hands right. I'm bringing in David Questenberry at right tackle. Brian Bulaga is going to be gone. Storm Norton also a free agent. Even if you bring him back, you don't want that to be your starting right tackle. You could obviously address it in the draft, picking 17th overall. If you're not taking a tackle at 17, you're not looking to start that guy rookie season. It can happen, obviously, but that's not your goal. David Questenberry is a guy that started to play very well. I'm bringing in Alexander Johnson at linebacker. I love Kaiser White. I would be ecstatic if they re-sign him. For some reason, I just don't see it trending that way. I don't know why. It's just a gut feeling. I think Alexander Johnson makes so much sense for right around the same price, and he's so much better in run defense. Alexander Johnson. And lastly, Bryce Callahan. I know it's funny bringing in 2 Broncos, but the familiarity is there. The price is right. Callahan becomes your true nickel slot corner. You get Asante and Mike Davis on the edges with the back in there, and then you just add other guys for depth in the draft and what they already have. So that's what I'm doing with the charge. That comes out to about $26.13 million, leaving you about $9 million for the draft. Makes too much sense. So that's what I'm doing if I'm the Chargers. Let me know what you think. Ryan Dyrud, LAFB on Twitter. Would love to hear your thoughts. And if I left anyone out, if there's a free agent you really want to see them go after, if there's someone you don't agree with, or hey, if you love my list, let me know too. I appreciate it. Once again, on Twitter, that's Ryan Dyrud, LAFB, or just comment below wherever you are listening or watching. All right, on to the Rams. So, as I talked about on Wednesday, Rams need to go all in on bringing everyone back that they can. There's really no need to go outside. There's no need. They don't need to add anyone on the outside forces. They have 8 draft picks where they can fortify positions, get some new blood in there. But if they do want to go outside, how I mathed it out on Wednesday, again, I keep referring to that episode because I think it's important you listen to that one because you can get where I'm coming from now into this episode. What they were able to free up with restructures and then spending, bringing back the top guys that I think they should bring back. Odell Beckham, Austin Corbett, Johnny Munt, Noteboom, Von Miller, Darius, all these guys. With the restructures, if they go the way we hope, that still leaves them with about $13 million after bringing all those guys back. with that 13, like I said with the Chargers, they're going to need between 8 and 10 for the draft. So I mean that leaves them with like 5 to 6 that they can maybe play with. You also want to save some for in-season stuff. So I don't really see them going after anyone. I really don't. But if they do, I'll give you a few. I think corner is a position that they should definitely add depth to. Especially, again, I have them bringing back Darius Williams. But if he gets the market value, guys, for those who don't know, according to Spotrac, I think this is way too high just based on his production this year. But they have it set at $13 million a year. The Rams are not paying Darius Williams $13 million a year. I have them bringing him back, though, because I think they really want him back in this team, knowing this system. Up and down season, but when he was good, he was really good. Had some bad games, but when he was good, he was good. But if they don't bring him back or he gets priced, they get priced out and he can get that 10 plus million elsewhere. Because I can't see the Rams even giving him 10. I think they're going to offer him in that 6 to 7 range. Which frees I have it mapped out at 13. That's where I have the budget at. Just basing off those numbers. If they are able to get him back at 6 million, that gives them 7 million more to go out and spend. But if they don't bring him back altogether, and even if they do, I still think they can add a corner. But these 3 guys are 3 that I think would be interesting that they can potentially afford. I already mentioned Bryce Callahan with the Chargers. I think he's a great fit for the Rams too. True nickel slot corner, which is something they need. Darius Williams and Jalen Ramsey play mostly on the outside. Ramsey plays all over the place and can play anywhere, but they're truly the best on the outside. Bryce Callahan could then fortify that nickel slot spot. Desmond King, LA might know him decently from his time with the Chargers. Very up and down. Has some years looked good, some year hasn't looked good, but he is best in the slot. Market value is about $2.5 million. So he's cheap, very affordable. They could bring him in. You know, you have Robert Rochelle, who's going into his 2nd season, who I know they really love and they want to see develop more, but he's just going to need some more time. So I think I'd be okay with them, giving him a shot. And you're not asking him to come in and be Jalen Ramsey. You're asking him to come in and be a depth piece, a slot guy that can hopefully get back to, what he did in those beginning years with the Chargers when he had some good games, some good tape. And it just hasn't really worked out since he got traded from there playing with Tennessee and Houston. Rasul Douglas, formerly with Green Bay, again, like I mentioned with the Chargers, Green Bay is not going to be able to bring everyone back. They're in a bad cap situation, similar to the Rams, but the Rams have proven how well they've been at moving money, where the Packers haven't really done that. And they have a lot of top-tier free agents that they want to try to bring back. And Rasul Douglas, similar to Devon Campbell, I think is one that they end up just having to let go. He's slated about that 6 to 7 million a year, so not crazy expensive. Finished last year with a 74.5 grade, which was 16th among all corners. High interceptions, so he was good at taking the ball away. You pair that with Jalen Ramsey, I mean that's any of these 3 guys really, because again, you have Jalen Ramsey, you have the best corner in football. If you can get a guy that can come in and be the 2nd or 3rd or even the 4th best corner in your team, because again, you still have David Long. You still have Robert Rochelle. If you bring back Darius Williams, because again, that $13 million I have with bringing back Darius Williams at $13 million. So you could potentially still get any of these 3 guys. Now, if they don't go after a corner and they want to go all in at center position, meaning obviously they're not bringing back Brian Allen, which I have them bringing back because his value is about $4 to $5 million. And if they don't, that gives them an extra 5. And then they go all in. I would love to see them going after Ryan Jensen from Tampa Bay, one of the top centers in the game. He's going to command close to $13 million a year. So that's going to take basically all their budget for one player, but could be a great fit with this Rams. He's a very physical center, plays mean, plays nasty. One thing I want to point out though, and again, PFF grades are subjective. I try to say that all the time. It's not the end-all, be-all. But he finished last year with a 68.7 grade, ranked 14th overall. Brian Allen finished with a 74.8, 10th overall. So how much improvement are you getting for that $7 million? I think you are. I think you can't just look at the grading and take that as the final say. Ryan Jensen's a phenomenal tenured center leader. It'd be similar to what the Chargers did in bringing in Corey Lindsey last year. I think Ryan Jensen gives you that. I still think they just bring back Brian Allen. They add a center in the draft that they can develop. I think that makes more sense. But if they want to go all in on a player, because they don't need to do it at really any other position, the only positions they truly need help with in free agency, depending on how it shakes down with their in-house guys. But if they're able to bring back all the guys I thought they would bring back, then corner and center is really all that they need to address. So if I'm going with my gut, I don't think they bring any of these guys in. I think they get all the in-house guys they can, maybe go for a super cheap depth guy. But if I'm picking one of these, I think they go after either Bryce Callahan or Rasul Douglas. I think they bring back Brian Allen at center. And then I think they add, even if they bring back Darius Williams, the corner room was probably the one that needed the most help. So bringing in a Bryce Callahan or Rasul Douglas will instantly help. And then it doesn't force you to draft a corner in the draft. You can really go best player available at every draft position you have for those 8 slots. So I would love it if they could get Rasul Douglas. Love it if they get Bryce Callahan. Both those I think would fit great in the system and the scheme, and they'd be able to do a lot of good things with. So that's going to do it for the LA Football Show this week. Deep dive into free agency, the last 2 episodes here. Let me know your thoughts again. Ryan Dyrud, LAFB on Twitter. You can comment on YouTube if you're listening. You can go to LAFBnetwork.com, comment there. We got great articles up on free agency all week, all month, basically, until free agency hits in the middle of March. The tag deadline is March 8th, so we'll see if anybody gets tagged. I don't see anyone getting tagged on the Rams. I could definitely see Mike Williams getting tagged on the Chargers. Hope everyone, though, has an absolutely fantastic Friday, a great weekend. Thank you for making this show a part of your day. I always appreciate it. I'm Ryan Dyrud. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.